On Beyond the Box Art, we combine humour, history and half-built projects. Because who actually finishes a model before starting the next one anyway? Hiya Benchmates, this is Beyond the Box Art, the official podcast of the International Plastic Modellers Society UK. Please welcome your host, Paul Pendleton-Brown, and joining him this episode are Mike Baldwin, Dan Brazil, Mark Housley, Martin Drayton, and we are joined this episode by modelling royalty, Mr. Spencer Pollard.
Hi Benchmates, welcome to episode 11 of Beyond the Box Art, the official podcast of IPMS UK. Your fortnightly fix of plastic mayhem, paint fume philosophy and stash inflation reality checks. We're broadcasting straight from our cluttered workbenches to your ears with plenty of spruce snipping, decal swearing and the odd tangent into why Boulders has once again started a kit he'll never finish. I'm joined this episode by Dan.
Hi everyone.
Boulders.
Hello everybody.
Mark.
Hi everyone.
And Martin.
Hello from Utah.
Anyway, episode 11 is revved up and ready, so strap in, prime those parts, and let's get this show rolling. Episode 11 starts now. Then let's start off as we normally do with what we've actually got on the bench. So, Mike, what are you working on at the moment?
I am still working on King George V and Warspite for Telford. It's going rather well. Masking's doing me head in. But, you know, it's all with the pros and the cons of building a battleship. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. For the first ship kit I've built in a very long time, I'm actually finding it therapeutic. So, yeah, really enjoying it.
And have you actually bought anything recently since the last episode?
I've got a few bits, but we went to Keighley show on Sunday. I actually won a unicorn kit that I've been after for a while, and you sort of know about this one, Browley. So, I actually won.
The Queen Mary.
Queen Mary, because I've always fancied doing it as the Grace Ghost scheme. So, all painted grey, as she was sailed as a troop ship during the Second World War. There's no aftermarket for it at all in 570. So, that'll be a nice little seascape to have her on. So, yeah, she's, what length? 52.7 centimetres long.
Oh, blimey.
In 5/70th scale, so it's about right because she's 1,000 foot long. So, but yeah, I've always had a thing for doing RMS Queen Mary, so that will be done on a seascape, doing full pelt.
Moving on then, Mark, what have you been working on?
Well, I've started the Bregway Elise in 72nd scale, which is a Azure kit, which isn't the easiest, I must admit. But this is for the Telford Bolton Club table, which is maritime themes. It's different. I don't even remember building anything French. And this is properly French because it's not pretty.
It's the French equivalent to the Gannet.
Basically, yeah.
Maritime Patrol.
It's gone together okay. I've decided I'm not going to go crazy with it. I'm just going to generally build it. If I carry on with advanced modelling syndrome, trying to make every part fit, I'm just going to end up falling out of love with it. It'll end up getting boxed. Another one for the shelf. And I'm doing some little figures for a friend of mine, as I have shown you earlier on, that he's building a wooden model of HMS Surprise, and he has given me some 1/64th scale figures to paint. Got a Dr. Matcher from the film and Captain Jack Aubrey, both playing one's on the fiddle, one's on a cello, I think Matcher plays. Plus I've got some furniture for the captain's office to do, and I've got the ship's boats to do as well, the cutter and things like that, little rowboats. And that's it. They're going to keep me busy for a while. That's what's on the bench.
What have you been spending your cash on?
Well, I didn't go to Halifax. I went with Mike over to Keighley on Sunday. Do you know when you walk around a show or a shop even and just nothing grabs you, nothing is jumping out of you, and the only thing that did was a little Tamiya, a dinosaur. I've done a couple of these bits before. I've done the Tyrannosaurus. I just thought, you know what, just £8. I'm gonna get one of them and have a play and have a mess. It comes with what it shows you on the box. It's got a little bit of an island that you can paint up all the rocks, and there's a little bit of sea at the bottom of it with a little bit of a beachy part on it. So yeah, that'll be fun. And it's only got about, this is one for Wongi. It literally has maybe 4 parts. So it's basically the whole body is one.
Blimey.
That's my purchase. I didn't buy anything else.
Jam Screw are going to be coming on to the pod for our conversation probably in November or December. But the main reason they've got so much Seeking stuff is because they have in production, or in design at the moment, ready for production, a 1/32nd scale Seeking.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Wow.
It's going to be a biggie. But
That's going to have to come with a rotor fold.
yes, all resin. But from what I've seen so far,
3D print.
they're going to actually absolutely ace it. The quality of the 48th stuff I've seen is brilliant. We had a parcel arrive today from one of our new sponsors for the show, Phase Hanger Resin Accessories. Mike Reeves over in Estates sent us a care package.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he sent across, I'll have to put some pictures up on Facebook, etc. The quality.
Wow!
Do you want cutting-edge detail for your kits? Then take a look at Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, run by USAF veteran Mike Reeves. With real-world aircraft experience as a crew chief, Mike knows exactly where accuracy counts. And today, he's bringing that knowledge to life with precision 3D printed parts. From seamless intakes and nozzles to dropped flaps, pods, pylons, and cockpit upgrades, Phase Hanger's prints capture the crisp edges and fine detail that limitations in injection molding just can't reproduce. From 1/72nd to 1/32nd scale, you'll find add-ons from Cold War classics to the latest frontline jets with frequent new additions to the product range. Every piece is designed by modelers, for modelers, and faithfully reproduced on state-of-the-art printers and shipped worldwide, and are ready to drop straight into your next build. With additions to the product line landing all the time, there's always something fresh to elevate your next build. Explore the full range at phasehangerresin.com and follow Phase Hanger on Facebook and Instagram for regular updates and inspiration. Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, authentic detail designed with a veteran's eye and available to modelers everywhere. Phase Hanger is a proud sponsor of the Beyond the Box Art podcast.
Brace yourselves. It's the Stash Inflation Report, the segment where wallet sweep, self-control collapses, and new releases thunder in like a tsunami of temptation.
Right, Benchmates, bumper edition for you with new announcements and releases since our last update. Airscale have announced that work is underway to produce a 1/32nd scale Dornier DO-17Z. This is bound to get the Luftwaffe fans excited, and the initial CAD work looks fantastic. Armour Hubbies have announced a 1/48th Hawker Hurricane Mark I metal wing, and recent images online have shown test shots of the wing moulding, so hopefully this one isn't going to be too far away. Roden are releasing a 1/144th Boeing 727-321, and the box art for this first release shows a Pan Am livery. KP have announced a new tool 1/72nd scale Republic P-47 C2 Thunderbolt. Decals for 2 aircraft from the 61st Fighter Squadron 56th Fighter Group based at Hellsworth, and one from the 84th Fighter Squadron 78th Fighter Group based at Duxford are included in the kit. Great Wall Hobby are releasing a new tool 1/48th F-16I of the Israeli Air Self-Defense Force. From Canada, we have news of a 1/32nd scale Canadair CT-11 Ford shooter in Royal Canadian Air Force Snowbirds livery. This will be from the 2024 season, celebrating the RCAF's 100th anniversary. Images online are looking very promising for this 3D printed model, and I have mine on pre-order from the manufacturer. On a personal note, our Snowbird 10 for that season is a long-standing friend of mine. I know which airframe I will be building. Dogfighter Models have announced a 1/72nd, 1/48th and 1/32nd printed representation of the Yak-1 I-26 from Factory 301. This is claimed to be different to their 2024 release of the aircraft, but we don't have any further details at the moment. Sword have announced a 1/72nd scale short Seamew, which was designed as an anti-submarine aircraft and is safe to say was slow, short-ranged, and saw only a year in service before being replaced by the Fairey Gannet in the role. The Seamew was most definitely an aircraft that was designed for function over form. At the recent E-Day event held by Edward, 4 new kits were announced. An Enstrom helicopter, which was only available to those attending the event on the day, though one assumes that the work involved in producing this 1/72nd heli, it will get a general release in the near future. Also announced was a new Tool 1/72nd Spitfire 5B early in the Profi Pack series with a December 2025 release date. As part of the new hybrid system from Edward Brassen, a 1/32nd Focke-Wulf 190A is on the cards, and also a 1/32nd Spitfire 9. More details on these when it becomes available. And Micromer are releasing a 1/32nd DFW T28 Flow early, which to be honest would not look out of place with Dick Dastardly and Muttley on board chasing a certain pigeon. And now, over to Dan for the armour news.
First up, Cyber Hobby have announced a real treat for the 1/72nd crowd. The German SFH-18 howitzer come 7675 in their exclusive white box range. This is an Armour Pro number 83 release planned for November 2025. It's built from Dragon's original mould, but with some neat upgraded 3D parts. Being a limited run available direct from Cyber Hobby, this one is sure to vanish fast. Moving on to mini art, September 2025 sees the arrival of the Stug. Moving on to mini art, September sees the arrival of the Sturmhaubitze 42 Aus G, late production in 1/72nd scale. Catalogue number 72120. Expect the usual mini art standard, sharp moulding, photo etch, clear parts and 5 decal options. A tidy little self-propelled gun that packs all the detail we've come to expect from mini art. Now for something a little bit different. Hughes models are expanding into the upgrade world with a digital twist. They've just released a 1/35th M1008 GM pickup 4-inch lift kit, but this time it's an STL file to download and print at home yourself. Designed for the AK Interactive M1008 kit, this gives your Chevy truck a proper off-road stance with bigger mud terrain tyres, new leaf springs, drive shafts, shocks, brakes, and crisply detailed replacement wheels. For those of you with printers at home, this is a cracking way to add some muscle to your Chevy truck build. Finally, Airfix keep the Cold War classics rolling with 2 re-releases of their 1/76 scale military Land Rovers. They're all back in the range. The first is the long wheelbase Land Rover hardtop with Sankey trailer, the iconic utility vehicle that became a backbone of British Army mobility. Then there's the 1-ton forward control truck GS body with its distinctive flat front Rover V8 power, perfect for dioramas of military logistics in the Cold War era. Both are small scale, highly detailed and ideal for scene builders. But please, Airfix, can we have some military Land Rovers in 1/35th scale? And we have a book release. In April 1943, on a sun-baked ridge in Tunisia, one of the fiercest and most decisive battles of the North Africa campaign unfolded, a clash that would change the course of the war and lead to the capture of one of the world's most famous tanks, Tiger 131. In Tiger 131, The Forgotten Battle, author Dale Oscroft brings to life a story long overshadowed by history. His late father, Sergeant John Oscroft of the 2nd Battalion Sherwood Foresters, fought in that battle, and his memories inspired a 5-year journey of research, discovery and remembrance. Drawing on first-hand testimony, official war diaries, detailed maps and rare archive photographs, Dale reveals the wider picture. The units involved, the personalities who led them, and the desperate fight for control of the Tunisian high ground, Riat el Attack. This is more than a story of one captured tiger tank. It's a tribute to the determination, courage and sacrifice for all of those who fought there on both sides. Tiger 131, The Forgotten Battle, shines new light on a moment of extraordinary bravery and the battle that finally extinguished Hitler's last hopes of holding Africa. You can pre-order your copy from the Bovington Tank Museum website, which is tankmuseum.org. And if you order before the 20th of October, your name will appear in the acknowledgements, as will mine, because I have pre-ordered my copy. So order yours.
It's time for the IPMS UK Dispatches with Mark Sanderson, your regular society spotlight on events, branches and SIGs.
Right then, Mark, what have we got for this edition?
Quite a short one, actually, Brownie, because obviously we're all gearing up for a certain show, which we'll come on to at the end of this. But the first one I've got is on Saturday, October the 18th, which is the Showcase 2025. This is being held at the Icknield Centre, Icknield Way, Lichworth. And this week, I'm going to go for a full 100% on the phonetic alphabet. So we have Sierra Golf 6, 1 Echo Foxtrot. That's where that one is. And that is, they kind of build it as the past, the present and the future in miniature. There's going to be obviously the usual displays from various clubs who have been invited, traders, and there'll be a competition. There's refreshments and free on-the-street parking, and it's open from 10 till 4. The admission costs are adults are £5 and under 16s are free. Then we move on to the Sunday. I've got 2 events on Sunday. This first one's a little bit different and is aimed at people who are really into aviation subjects. This is the Coventry Air Enthusiasts Fair 2025, being held on the 19th of October from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. It's not a specific model show. It's more any type of aircraft memorabilia for sale in abundance. There'll be all sorts of things there, as well as some traders who might be selling model kits. The standard museum admission charges apply, and people can find out the exact details of that at the midlandairmuseum.uk website. And also they can find out the exact address details, etc. But the admission not only gives you access to the fair, but also the museum, which has a wide collection of exhibits, including an Avro Vulcan, which I can, if no one stood underneath one of those aeroplanes, even I've stood underneath one of those, and I was kind of like blown away. So amazing. A Russian Mi-24 Hind, it's a helicopter, isn't it?
Milhind, yes.
Yeah. Some F4 Phantoms, an F-104 Starfighter, an F-101 Voodoo, and throw it all in there, a couple of electric Lightnings, plus many others. Loads of things to see, and if everyone wants some reference photographs, probably a perfect opportunity to get up close and personal with those aircraft and get those details they're looking for.
And if you haven't visited the museum recently, they recently repainted the Voodoo in Canadian Air Force markings compared to what it was originally. So it's had a repaint, so well worth a visit for that alone.
Yes, that sounds good. And then the next one we've got is the Malvern Hills Modelling Exhibition, which is again on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is going to have the various traders with their model kits and accessories for sale and lots of club displays, on-site food and drink. The admission for there is £5 for adults with under 16s free. But a really important note is it's only cash on the door. So please make sure if you do intend to go along, you have the cash to do it. They will have change, obviously, but you want to make sure you're not turned away. That is being held at the MSJ Sports and Fitness Centre, 33 Barnards Road, Barnards Green, Malvern, and the postcode is Whiskey Romeo 143 Lima Hotel.
You've been practicing.
I have. I think I've been fortunate. Some of these week's ones have been quite simple. Throw in a couple of, I don't know, I's and maybe the odd K and I might be in trouble. But yeah, so really the main one for this one is obviously everyone's favourite show is happening at the 8th and 9th of November up at the Telford International Centre, which is Scale Model World 2025. Please make sure that if you are an active IPMS UK member, that you bring along your valid up-to-date membership card. Also, remember, you cannot renew your membership card on the door. And if you plan to renew it a couple of weeks beforehand, you might miss the deadline of getting your new membership card back to you. So please do that before the end of October, because you just need to make sure you've got that before you turn up at the door.
29th was the deadline?
Yeah, I think 29th, 30th of October was the deadline for people to make sure they've renewed. And obviously you need to make sure that it's going to be then posted back to you in time to go along to the show. There is obviously tickets available at the IPMSUK.org website for both days, which people can go along and purchase. And they can find out all the information at said website about what times are opening, the location of it, if they need directions. And obviously also I think there are some details about the various traders that are going to be there, and also some of the seminars, etc., that are on, and also the competition. You need to make sure you've entered as well before you rock up with something you've been working on for the last 6 months. You don't want to get turned away at the last minute.
So it's pre-registration online only then, is it?
Yes, I believe it is. Yes, I would make sure that you do enter. Give yourself plenty of time, because you don't want to be disappointed when you rock up and you can't enter the competition.
Now, remembering back to something that Mr. Regan said at the AGM, IPMS membership will get you in from any country for free at Telford. It's not just UK membership, it's a valid IPMS membership for any IPMS overseas as well will get you into the event.
Yes, that's absolutely. And also there are obviously various overseas clubs who are obviously showing their displays there and into the competition. So it's not just a UK only event, it's very much an international concern, and that's the way we like it, really. My last call really is out for anybody out there who is a content creator, whether that be a YouTube or podcast. Although I'd be absolutely appalled if you listen to any other podcast but this one. Then if you want to press pass for any of the days, then please do get in touch with me via email, which is publicity@ipmsuk.org, and I will issue you a press pass for the specific day. These are going to be digital this year, so they will be emailed out to you, and then you can either print it out yourself or bring it on digitally. And these press passes will give you early access to the halls before the public, so that you can get those all important, wonderful looking shots of the various beautiful models on display.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mark. And obviously we have a show special lined up to be recorded prior to Telford, which will drop the Thursday before the event. So as you're travelling to Telford, you can actually put this on and have a listen, which will have all the updated news from hopefully a large quantity of the exec members of IPMS UK, and also giving you some hints and tips on places to park other than on the show site, because it's a lot easier to park off site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make sure you catch that episode. It'll be really good.
Fantastic. Okay, till the next episode. We'll see you soon, Mark.
Thanks, Brownie. Cheers.
Visit scalemodelpodcast.com, your hub for the best scale modelling pods, because finding great content shouldn't take longer than hunting for lost photo etch.
Welcome to another River Counters Minute, brought to you by Matters of Scale. We're excited to announce our new partnership with Inside the Armour, better known as ITA3, an established UK brand known for their high-quality scale model upgrade parts. These parts are designed in the UK and printed in the USA by Matters of Scale, saving US buyers on shipping and tariffs. We're now offering ITA3's 148 scale upgrade parts for the FX Jaguar, like exhausts, landing gear and seats, plus many other fantastic additions on our site. When it comes to ITA3 parts, they truly stand out for how detailed and well-researched they are. These upgrades are designed by scale modelers for scale modelers, which means every piece is carefully fitted and tested to ensure it fits perfectly in the kits they're meant for. All the fine details are beautifully sculpted in 3D and rendered to perfection. These parts are truly top-notch. Visit us at www.mattersofscale.com to explore the full lineup and let us know what else you'd love to see.
Beyond the Box Art is proudly sponsored by Ammo by Mig Jimenez. For all your weathering essentials, please visit ammo.es. Please support veterans, service personnel and blue light services through scale modelling therapy. Visit modelsforheroes.org.uk, where plastic, paint and purpose come together.
Okay, today's guest needs little in the way of an introduction to modelers, but who can get one anyway? Spencer Pollard has been at the sharp end of the hobby for decades, producing some of the most striking builds and articles in print and online. From military and scale through his prolific personal publishing projects, Spencer's work has inspired thousands of us to push our painting, weathering and finishing further. Whether it's aircraft, armour or simply cutting-edge modelling techniques, he's been there, done it and probably written the book about it, or is going to be available very shortly. We're delighted to have him on Beyond the Box Art, so Benchmates, buckle up for our masterclass. Spencer, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me on.
He did half big you up, didn't he? He did big you up. Oh.
He did, that was an extraordinary thing.
Are we still recording?
Was he talking about me then? Was that all about me?
Yeah, that's very nice of you, thank you. But yeah, thanks for... Wow, nobody's ever said anything that nice to me in my life.
Anyway, let's start at the beginning. What was the very first kit you built? And was it a smooth takeoff or a crushed landing into the carpet monster?
Very first kit, Airfix Scammell tank transporter, the little 76th scale one, 72nd scale one. That was the very first one I remember building. And was it a smooth landing? It was a gluey mess, I seem to remember. It wasn't anything particularly striking. I'd like to say that I know when that was. I'm thinking maybe 7 or 8, something along those lines. Don't even know where the kit came from, to be honest. It may have been a holiday purchase.
And was that it? Had the bug bit then?
I've spoken about this before, Mark, to be honest, and I honestly can't remember a time when I haven't been obsessed with it in some degree or other. And I don't really understand why it was that simple box of plastic pieces captured my imagination the way that it did. It just seemed to be something I remember being for me, that I could do, something artistic. And when I opened the box and started gluing these parts together, I think probably like a lot of other people, I broke all of the parts off the sprues as well. I didn't have any tools. And
so what we're talking, 8, 9, 10?
it was 7 or 8, something of those lines when it first came out. Glued it together, stuck most of the parts to my fingers. And I think when we look back on our childhood, we've got fragmentary memories that we're bringing together. And my memories of that particular project feel like they're clear, but I'm not sure how clear they were. But yeah, that was the very first one. And then the next one I remember after that, which probably gives you some indication of where my life was going to go, was the first of the Airfix Harriers, their nominal GR1. It was the one where the artwork was that Roy Cross had done was lifting off from a clearing, you may remember. I remember building that, and that being the first of the aircraft projects that I did, but also the first moment I remember being slightly annoyed with myself because I'd made a mistake. I hadn't put something inside the model. If you've ever built that model, it's got a little set of connecting rods inside the fuselage that connect the nozzles so that they can kind of move together.
The nozzles together, doesn't it? I seem to remember that.
And I broke it apart to put this part in. And of course, there was glue everywhere and on the canopy and all that sort of stuff. And yet from those really troubling and sort of mistake-ridden projects, I just was just completely captivated by it. It was just something I knew that I wanted to do. And although my memories are that I built loads of models as a child, that simply wasn't the case. I built probably very few, but I never lost that desire to carry on building plastic.
I'm intrigued that you started with a vehicle rather than an aircraft.
And not only that,
because everyone seems to have started with a plane.
In terms of the Airfix range,
You didn't.
a reasonably complicated one as well. You know, it's got lots of little parts for.
But that could have been because it bought for you.
I feel like I perhaps bought it myself with my pocket money, but I can't really remember that. And it appeared from somewhere. That's for sure. But my inspiration for all of this is that I remember seeing at my grandmother's house, and you remember back in the old days of British houses that your grandparents had those pellets above the window.
Oh, the
wooden helmet. And on top of that, and I have no idea why this would be up there,
And maybe this is one of those fragmentary memories that really is just a load of rubbish, is that there was an Airfix Sea King, the early Sea King.
Oh, the Apollo one.
Yeah.
C6 on it.
And I remember seeing that and thinking, oh, what's that then? That looks interesting. What's all that about? And this sort of stuck in my mind. And although that was being built by my uncle and my father, can't remember, I wanted one of my own. So maybe that's where the Scannell tank transporter came from. How long it lasted, don't really know. Probably not that long, actually. And there are no pictures of any of this kind of nonsense, as you can imagine. And so there isn't any pictures of the Harrier. But that Harrier, that was the thing that stuck. I mean, from 7, 8 years of age, it became an abiding passion that's never left me, really. That particular aircraft is just something that's stuck with me. Yeah. Yeah, intriguing looking back on those memories, really. I guess we all have them. Yeah.
I think we've all been there, haven't we? We've all got that similar kind of background with our modelling, the way we got into it.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Hobbies are an interesting thing. What captivates one person is going to bore another person almost into oblivion. And yet we all share something that I know a lot of people don't really understand. Oh, you build models. I had somebody say to me the other day, they were kind of joking. I don't think they were being particularly nasty about it. And they said, oh, what do you do for a living? And I said, I build models for a living. And they said, oh, you've never grown up then? And I spiked back first. Yeah, well, I kind of bristled a little bit for a couple of seconds. And then I went, yes, but I've still been able to pay the bills. And they kind of looked at me with that, really. It was that sort of, those kind of things. Maybe that's what's keeping us young, that we haven't really grown up. Maybe that's where we are with all this sort of stuff.
If you were an actor, they wouldn't say, oh, you're still playing.
No, maybe
they would. If you were an artist, a canvas artist or something like that, they wouldn't say, oh, you're still colouring in then.
Yeah.
It's that association with toys. Yeah. Models.
One of the things that did get me kind of away from that was building the 2 pubs that I built from town.
That was for your friend, wasn't it?
I built one for the landlord of my local, James, who he found out what I did and he said, oh, could you build a model of this place? And I said, oh yeah, no problem. Idiotic thing to do. I'm forever doing these idiotic things. And then I find that I've got to sit down and work out how to build a model of a 15th century listed building in a street in Newport. And so I said yes to it. And when it was handed over, he put it on display. It's behind the bar, actually behind his bar in the bar. So people can see it when I go in there. And so now if anybody says to me, what do you do? I just kind of point over the bar and I said, that's what. And it's amazing how when you build something like that, how much more seriously people take what you do. If you hand them a model of a Harrier or something, they kind of go, oh yeah, that's nice. But you hand them then a box diorama of a local landmark, they go, you actually built that. And that was sort of something that got people who maybe had this slight inkling of what I did a little more on side.
I think if you can show something that people can actually relate to life, then they have a point of reference. But like you say, if you show them a Harrier, they're like, yeah, that's cool. They're used to seeing a Harrier. Yeah,
no, absolutely. You can show them a model of a dustbin. As long as it looks like a dustbin, people will go, oh, that's kind of, I think that you're absolutely right there. The more relatable the miniature is to a person's actual life, the more they're going to hook into it and look at it and be able to analyze it as a replica. If you show somebody, we all build military vehicles or whatever, you show somebody a World War II tank, unless they've got intimate knowledge of a World War II tank, they're just going to go, yeah, that's just a tank. Nice tank kind of thing. But if you show them something, we had friends round at the weekend and there's the only model that I've got in display outside of this area of the house is a little kind of framed diorama. It's kind of like a Greek door set into a wall and it's sort of sat there. It's a bit like a 3-dimensional painting I've got in the living room. My friends were like, oh yeah, I really like that sort of thing because they can identify with it. And that's where miniatures go from being a silly hobby into something that people can recognize and understand and appreciate, which I find intriguing and interesting and fulfilling all at the same time.
I think that's why they appreciate dioramas as well.
something that models and that kind of thing, if people are dismissive, which they aren't often, but if they are dismissive, I often say, do you watch movies? Do you watch films? And they say, well, yeah. I say, well, a lot of what you've just watched is a miniature. You know,
I suppose you could say it's a similar reaction when somebody looks at a car model or a motorbike model, because they can relate to that, can't they? They can see the wires and all the bits and pieces and how good it looks, you know, the bodywork and stuff.
Yeah. Skips, yeah.
You can relate to them, you know.
I find that the more I build junk, the more people like. I remember a while back when I was building the workshop diorama, not the workshop diorama, the diorama that's got the little Honda S600 that I built during lockdown, the garage diorama. And I think I posted a picture of one of the fluorescent light tubes. It took me like 15 minutes to make or something, and it just went viral. And I was like, what about the rest of it? What about and I posted a picture of the car, and people were like, that's fine. Post a picture of 2 pieces of evergreen rod that I painted and put in a little bracket, and everybody went, oh, that looks really good. You know, it's funny, isn't it, what captures people's imagination? Yeah, really odd.
Yeah, you can spend hours on something and you get it, absolutely work your socks off on it, and nobody pays any bit of attention to it. Or, and you point it out, you say, well, I've done that as well there. What do you think of that little bit there? Oh, yeah, looks all right. Thanks.
Really odd.
Spence, you've written and built a lot of and published across the decades. What's changed most from the hobby from when you started, and what remains stubbornly the same?
This was an interesting question when I read it the other night. Written and published, what's changed most in the hobby from when you started? The thing that's changed most in the hobby is that model making in the 21st century, in 2025, is now fundamentally about painting. It's fundamentally a painting process. Painting and weathering. And weathering is absolutely the thing. There's no doubt about that. If you build something that's clean the way that models were built 30, 35 years ago, the Ted Taylor school of building and painting models, those kind of things are looked upon as being almost unfinished in 2025. So weathering is always the fundamental thing that gets picked up on. Oh, that model could have been more weathered than it is. I would have weathered it more. Even if you're building something that in reality is pristine, modelers will not see it as being finished if it hasn't got weathering on. So I think that's something that has changed most in the hobby. Also, with the advent of high quality kits, the aftermarket, accessories, all of those kind of things, the need to build and convert models the way that we did when I was coming up through the ranks, that's gone now. People don't really do a lot of conversions. So you're not seeing construction being sold by the modeler. A lot of the time.
I think a lot of that, Spence, was because it was hard. It was a lot more difficult to convert something all them years.
That is true. And when I came up through the ranks, I learned from a very early age, and we're going back to the sort of late 70s, early 80s. Yeah. I learned how to build difficult kits. I learned how to fill. I learned how to sand, all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Which means that anything that gets presented to me, if it's not, a Magna model from back in the day.
Did you get any magazines or anything like that?
Yeah, all the time.
I know I didn't. I mean, I thought I invented dry brushing all by myself.
Yes.
And then, as time goes on and you go older and you get into it and you meet somebody else and you get, hey, but I must admit, when I was a kid, it's not like I was showing it off to anybody. We were just in my bedroom on the ceiling.
Magazines were a fundamental bedrock of everything that I did. And it was, so when those guys were, doing conversions in magazines, I wanted to be able to do that. So I was constantly learning how to do that, how to take one kit and create something from it, something different.
Well, you've got the ability these days with the resin and the 3D printing, instead of actually getting a piece of balsa wood out and filling it with talcum powder and varnish, etc., and getting your smooth fuselage, you basically just take a component out of a box. You may have to do a bit of cutting, etc., to put it into, but insert it into where you're actually going to put it. But as you say, the actual process of actually making the models, I can remember reading the articles by Alan W. Hall and things like that in the old Airfix magazines of how to convert a Meteor or an Anson and make it into something completely different. These days, you basically just buy the replacement component rather than having to actually physically make it.
A driver for me is that I need that challenge. I need because I build so much
throughout the year and I'm offered a lot of new kits to build, I have to have the challenge of building something that's more difficult, that pushes me. That sounds really arrogant, and I don't mean it to be like that. It's not that I'm dismissing building kits. It's just something that's a fundamental part of my need as a model maker to create something different. For instance, a few years back, I got about 5 of them in the end. I wanted to build the Revell 32nd scale Harrier that was reissued a few years ago, but I didn't really want to build it the way that it was from the box. And so I converted it into one of the development batch Harriers. It's got a completely different nose. It's got a different sort of fuselage, upper fuselage. There's lots of little changes all over this model. But I wanted to do that. And it became something that I could become engrossed in. And as a result of that, I had a model at the end of it, which is pretty much unique to me. There aren't too many of those.
That's the PM Kestrel, rather than 1127?
No, it's the one that came after that. So essentially it's a Harrier GR1, but it's got some slightly different features. For instance, around the intakes, whereas the intakes on a GR1 are kind of smoothed out, the intakes on that have got similar protrusions in front of the cold nozzles that the AV8B has got. It's got that sort of shape. It's got a pointed nose, got a different cockpit, all of those kind of things. So I needed that driver to allow me to step away from building a Tamiya F14 to doing something that's a little bit kind of different, you know? Frankly, unless you're like me, who needs that kind of thing, why would you spend your time up to your armpits in talcum powder and dust when you can be gluing together a brand new Tamiya F14 or something along those lines?
What's the talcum powder for?
I mix talcum powder with super glue as a filler, as a filling agent. You can mix it with 2 types of super glue. You can mix it with either the thicker super glue, the medium viscosity one, or the thin super glue. If you mix it with thin super glue, it sets like that. If you mix it thicker super glue, you've got a bit more working time. But the one thing about it is that you can use it as a filler, and when you sand it, it's easy to sand, and it sands and polishes to glass, so it doesn't shrink.
Be pretty quick with that though, Spence. You know,
you've got some working time with it, and you can set it off with an accelerator as well. You don't need to wait for it to wait.
No, what I meant was, I remember seeing somewhere where somebody was saying that if you use it super glue on your joints to fill, if you leave it, it hardens. It keeps getting harder and harder. And if you leave it for an hour or two, it's harder than the plastic around it.
I think that's true. And you do run the risk, if you don't work on it straight away, you run the risk as well, because the underlying plastic is likely to be slightly softer. You have all sorts of problems because it just bulges and you've got to kind of work around it. But putting talcum powder in it, apart from the fact it makes the filler smell really nice, because I use baby talc, you've then got a kind of a material that's easy to work and blends in perfectly. So I've used that quite a lot on conversions over the years. I used it a lot on the nose. If you ever look at that Harrier, it's got a long nose probe, long data probe. And that's blended into the stock GR1 nose, but it blends in perfectly. And I used super glue into that. Going back to the question, what's changed most in the hobby? So that's what I think's changed a lot in the hobby over the years. I think we've become painters rather than model makers, model painters rather than model makers. That's going to get me into all sorts of hot water, because I'm sure that people who listen to this go, actually, I build a lot of my models and I don't just paint them. How dismissive are you? I don't mean it like that, but I just feel that fundamentally it's more about finishing the paintwork than it is about construction. One of the things that's remained stubbornly the same is the idea that the hobby is dying and that we're all getting older and kids aren't coming into it and all of those kind of things. All conversations, all letters in magazines, all debates at model clubs and at shows that were being had 40 years ago. I remember having exactly these conversations, and every year that passes, we have the same conversation. Kids aren't coming into it. We're still getting the same. Oh, people are getting older, all of those kind of things. And that's something that I feel has a degree of merit, but we're still seeing people coming into the hobby later in their lives when they've got a bit more disposable income, they've got a bit more time in their hands, people are retiring, they're able to spend some time sitting at, even if it's just sitting at a kitchen table and gluing together some plastic parts and painting it. I think that's something that remains stubbornly the same. And also, the internet has given voice to this, perhaps more than the letters pages of older magazines back in the day that were really the only portal to have any kind of discourse or get your opinion out there, is that every single time a kit gets released, somebody will say, I wish it was this. Why isn't it in this scale? Can't we have had this version? Especially those, every time a kit of a World War II fighter comes on stream, it's, oh, not another Mustang, oh, not another 109, oh, not another Spitfire. And there seems to be this singular misunderstanding that it's only by companies producing those kits that other kits that you may like are able to then be funded. Airfix produce 1 billion Spitfires so that we can have a 48 scale Gannet, so that we can have a 48 scale Anson, so we can have all of those esoteric things that we've all been asking for decades. They're funded by the Spitfires in the same way that I'm sure that when Arm make their money off their new 72nd scale P51D, they'll be able to create something a little bit more esoteric from that. So I think those comments, those criticisms, all of those things have remained. But that's just human nature, isn't it? We all want what we want. We definitely want what somebody else wants. Yeah, we do. We all.
You can see that with Qatari, with what they've done. They started with Spitfires, ME-109, and now they can do a Halifax.
Indeed. And they got a Hurricane in the line as well.
Yeah.
Mark 1 fabric wing.
I just listened to an interview with him, and he's saying exactly what you're saying, Spencer, that without those things done first, they can't possibly go on and do the esoteric stuff. So, yeah, people need to understand that.
You've got to do the stuff that's going to commercially sell and make you some money before you can start. Have the luxury of doing the oddball stuff.
Fairy flycatcher.
Absolutely. I remember when I was at Traplet doing military in scale, we used to go through the sales for the magazines each month and go through the front covers and all of that sort of stuff. And we put something German on the front cover, it would sell like hotcakes. You put something RAF on the front cover and the sales would drop. It was those kind of things. Whether we like it or not, people are interested in building those subjects. German Second World War subjects pretty much outstrip everything because everybody says it's cool. You know, the uniforms are cool, the vehicles are cool, you know, the aircraft look great, the camouflage looks great, all of those kind of things. I don't necessarily hold any particular, truck with all of that because I think that there's plenty of other cool things from other air forces and armies during the Second World War. But I understand that if that's what people are interested in, then that's kind of where the money is going to come from by doing those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those things have, in my opinion, that's what's changed. That's what's kind of stayed the same. But that question's really interesting because it's so open-ended. We could probably spend an entire hour and a half just chatting about those things and not repeat ourselves because it is what it is. They are what they are.
Yeah. And it means many different things to many different people, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Well, I found that I've changed over the years. From being a builder, I prefer painting.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I prefer the finishing and the painting.
Yeah. I get to a point, I'm at a point with a project I'm working on at the moment where I reached a level of inertia with this project last week that I had to almost talk myself down because I'd worked on it for so long. I'd been building it for so long and working on it that I kept on looking at it thinking, I'm going to have to paint this. I'm going to have to paint this. Time's ticking. I'm going to have to paint this. But I've wrapped my head around the idea of doing it. I'd become so riddled by the fear of something going wrong on this particular model that I just kept staring at it and thinking, come on, Spence, pull yourself together. You've done more complicated stuff than this. Come on, just pull up your big boy pants and get on with it. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship when it comes to painting. I often have to talk myself around each time I do a new model. How am I going to approach this? How am I going to do this? Is it going to look the way that I want? The comfort blanket of the construction before I get to the intensity of the finishing, that becomes an entirely different kind of thing. I don't know which one I love the most. I love the finished model. I love looking at it when it's done.
I couldn't do the conversions for one. It'd probably take me God knows how long to figuring out how I was going to do it. The best way of going around some of this. Doing that cockpit like you did and just thought, wow, there's some effort and work gone into that. Some thought gone into it anyway.
I think with conversions like that, and I've yet to do a full scratch build, which has been something I've been discussing with friends now for as long as I can remember.
What would you do, Harrier?
I really would like, if I do another Harrier, I'd like to do an FA2 and do a complete, the whole shooting match with an FA2, full bore, everything. But if I'm going to do, I don't really know what I fancy doing next as the proper conversion. I don't know. There's plenty of things.
What would you build as a scratch? What sort of thing would turn you on for doing that?
Going along with my inspiration for the Harrier, which was David Haggis's Harrier T2 that he built when he was ridiculously 15, I would either follow along his lines and do a 24 scale GR9 Harrier, which is essentially a scratch build because you're only really using the center section of the fuselage and a few bits and pieces. Wings are all different, fuselage different, tail planes are all different, cockpit, nose, everything's different really. Or I would do the EAP that's at Cosford. I'd like to do that because the EAP, for those people who don't know what this thing is, the EAP is the precursor to the Typhoon. It's essentially, when you look at it, it looks like a Typhoon, but it's cobbled together from a whole bunch of Tornado parts. The back end's pretty much a Tornado, the fin is a Tornado, engines, all of that kind of thing. But it's a really lovely shape. They never built one of these things, and I'm fortunate to live close to Cosford, so I could get really close to this thing. I think doing something like that would be an interesting model to have a go at. But the problem with doing the scratch build is you'd look at it and go, I'll do the scratch build. And somebody will release a kit.
Yeah, just as you're about a couple of days off from doing it, some bugger, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you just think, why have I bothered with this?
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a problem. But I think it's a case of starting small, isn't it? You'd have to start with something small and then kind of work your way.
It wouldn't even enter my sphere, that, at least not for me, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Leave that to you brave guys. All that.
I was surfing through Facebook and I don't know if you've heard of the guy William Adair. William Adair makes these 144 scale things. Well, he's doing the Moraine Saulnier at the moment, and he posted photographs of the rear fuselage that he's faceted in 144 scale. I looked at it, I thought, I'd just give up. I can't even conceive of how he's done that. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So those are the sort of things that I really appreciate, seeing something like that. But maybe one day, who knows? Too many other things to do at the moment.
Yeah. Spencer, moving on. Many modelers know you from Model Airplane International and your countless articles. Do you see yourself as a modeler who writes or a writer who models?
This is a complicated answer to a fairly straightforward question, so I'm going to do the best I can. I started off as a model maker who writes, but I think I've developed, in some ways, thanks to the daily diary that I now do, as a writer that builds models. The two things for me are inexorably linked. The reason why I got into this industry in the first place was because of those magazines we mentioned earlier and the influence that those magazines and the authors who wrote for those magazines had on me in my formative years within the hobby. So I always wanted to be able to write the way that those guys did back in the day when magazines didn't have full step-by-steps. When I started reading magazines, the nearest you would get to a step-by-step article was something in Scale Aircraft Modelling where Alan Hall had done a conversion in the middle of the magazine, and it was over 3 or 4 pages and little tiny photographs that he captioned. You got the articles that you would get within magazines maybe would have a couple of production shots and then the finished shots, but the rest of the article described it in detail. So they were a very descriptive art form within those magazines, and you could get a sense of exactly what was going on because of the authors. Now, all of those authors that wrote for those magazines back then were trained authors who had come up through the ranks, who then happened to build models very well. And read some of those articles from back in the 70s. The writing from guys such as Chris Ellis or Roger Chesno, who had the pen name Joe Sacchi. You look at the way that Alan Hall wrote. You look at the way that Ken Jones wrote in military modelling. They were outstanding authors, and then bolted onto those fabulous pieces of written work were their models. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to do the one thing that allowed me to do the other, which sounds like a very candid way of looking at the way that I've approached it. So when I first started, that inspiration was embedded into my mind and embedded into the way that I approached my first articles. Even to a point where my favourite author of all time is Roger Chesnut, who wrote for Scale Models back in the day. He's the single greatest author ever in any facet of our hobby to put pen to paper. He was able to write a 150-word preview of a kit, and I could tell it was his written work from the first sentence before I ever looked at his name underneath it. He was so good. He was so clever. He never wasted a single word. Everything was precise. Everything flowed. Everything moved from one sentence to another, from one paragraph to another, and then he would round it off with something that was really precise at the end of it, and you knew exactly what he felt about it. Occasionally, if I can't get into the rhythm of an article or a piece of work that I'm writing, I will read one of his old reviews from 83 just to get into that rhythm. It's a bit like playing drums. If I can't work out something, a fill or something, I will listen to a piece of music. I would get into the rhythm of what he would say, what he would write. Then I'll come back to the computer and I'm then in that zone. So I see the writing as very much as important as the build that I add to it. It's a complete package. It's not something where I build a model and I think, right, I'll just write this nonsense to go with it. They are fundamentally part and parcel of the same picture. Do get frustrated because I've been in this so long and I've been an editor. I was an editor at Miller Scale for 20 years. I do get frustrated when I read articles and I see articles in magazines where I know the article, the bit that people are going to be reading, is an afterthought by the author. And I can see whether that's the case. And I can read it and go, yeah, you didn't really want to write this, did you? You wanted to build a model, and that's great, but you didn't really want to write the bit that goes with the model. And that frustrates me because I'm so passionate about the written aspect of an article is not just photographs. It's not a photo shoot. An article is an all-encompassing, in my opinion, art form. You read some articles in non-modelling magazines. You read articles written by travel writers. They're fantastic. You gain a sense of the excitement of the author. One of the things that I used to be able to do is I knew a lot of these guys and I would read their articles in their voice. And I could almost have in my mind the guy sitting in front of me speaking to me and saying, this is what I did. And I get the sense these days, and no names, no pack drill, but I read some articles in some publications where I get no sense of the author's personality. I get no sense of the way that they've approached it. All I see is it as a step, as a kind of like I glued the cockpit together, I glued the fuselage together, painted the cockpit, you know. Is that because a lot of them these days, they seem to use a lot of captions, don't they? Just quick couple of captions, a couple of lines in the photograph, and that's it. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. I did this, the article that I wrote for Brett today, falling into this trap, but it was what I was asked. It was what I was asked to do. I wasn't asked to do a full-blown article. I was asked to do a step-by-step of this particular build. So you have to do those kind of things. But you still have an introduction where you get a sense of that. And I just feel that we've lost, as an industry and as modelling authors, I feel that we've lost something somewhere along the lines. Maybe we're never going to get it back. And maybe that's fine because the hobby's moved on and I haven't. I understand that. Maybe I'm still stuck in the past. That's entirely likely, actually, given how nostalgic I am about these magazines and these books. But there is definitely something that's changed fundamentally. Magazines are no longer, you go back to the point we had earlier on, what's changed? Way that articles are being published has changed as well, hasn't it? Because now very little is said about the way the model has been put together. Everything is about the way the model has been painted. So that's changed as well. Well, did you have any problems gluing those parts together? Did you need to fill it? Modelers are no longer interested in that because all they want to do is get over that bit to get to the bit that they enjoy, whether it's airbrushing camouflage or weathering.
Could that be anything to do with what the contributors are being paid? Because they used to get paid per page and, but
It's
possible. That's not part of it anymore. That doesn't happen anymore like that, does it?
I think that is possible. I also think it's possible that authors are rightly like to see their name in lights. They like to see their model published in a magazine. They like to see it on the front cover. They like to see their work on a Facebook page or whatever. We all like the dopamine hit, don't we? Of oh, that looks great. I really like that. So I get all of that sort of thing. And once the model's built, you get sent a kit. And once you've put it together, you've taken all the photographs. Once it's built, you're like, oh, I want to do the next. You're already looking at the next. But before you get to the next, you then have the boring bit. You've got to do the writing. I understand that.
As I say, I think we fall into that adage of a picture is worth 1,000 words. And
Yeah.
I think that's probably because of our digital age that we're used to that. And if something is well written, it completely elevates the piece and it completely changes it. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think it's being old-fashioned at all. They just see pictures, great, move on, but they don't listen to what's being said. And there's a missed opportunity, I think, in so many cases of really explaining what's going on and how things can be done. And I think you do that in the stuff that you produce.
I like it's all, to me, it almost feels the way that you could have a great song that's badly produced when it's recorded, or you can have a mediocre song that's really well produced where you can hear everything, and that song is then elevated up, isn't it? Because you've got the production that goes with it. Yeah, so it becomes something. But it's difficult expecting authors who are creating magazines to be almost professional in their approach to an article. And I think you're right, where there's an element of when they're not being paid to be professional. But if you're, for me, it was almost a case of personal pride. I wanted it to be like that. I think it would be churlish of me and actually wrong of me to assume that everybody feels and approaches their job in the same way that I do. I understand that. But I feel a sense of, not of annoyance, but I feel a sense of sadness that the things that thrilled me so much when I was starting out and was something that I so enjoyed when I started out are no longer part of what we do as an industry. That's sort of where I am with all of this. It's not a sense of anger because life moves on. I could be the guy that's sitting in the pub saying, well, football's not as good as it was in the 1970s. You remember those Leeds United Derby County games? I understand that. Things have moved on. Football's moved on. Music's moved on.
They didn't dive back then like they do today,
Becoming the old man chirping at the end of the bar that I so dislike within the hobby. I get all of that. Maybe I'm not really going to change. I don't know. Life moves on.
How many guys do you know that you literally do nothing but modelling for a living? I think I only know you.
Marcus does. He builds models for a living. David Parker, obviously.
Doesn't David Parker, doesn't he do the magazine?
Yeah.
First and foremost?
He does. My role within Doolittle when I joined was as their in-house model maker, which is what I'm doing now. And then I was the editor and then COVID hit and then I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. So now that's what I'm doing. I'm their on-call model maker, having to build models every month for either Brett or Marcus.
Stuffy sod.
It's a gift to be able to get up every day and be able to build, do something that you love.
Do you know, I don't know if I could do it. I don't think I could do it. I do a couple of hours at the vet and I've had enough. That's it. I just need to go away and veg in front of the telly for an hour or two.
On occasion, some days when I've done a couple of hours, I've had enough as well. It is definitely one of those things. It's a tough one, really. But you become so indoctrinated into it. But I think, I remember having a conversation with my son a few years ago. My son works in football. And I remember saying to him, if you can find a job where you're doing something that you love and that every morning you wake up and think, oh God, I don't, no one really want to go. So if you don't have to do that, then
I've done that.
You'll feel a lot better. And I've been very fortunate that that's something that I do. Having worked in the civil service before I started MIS, I worked for the civil service. So I was a civil servant, working for the land registry. Hated every single second of it. So I've been on that side of it. So I never ever take for granted what I'm able to do and how I've been able to make a living over the last.
Do you think you'll ever retire?
No, I'll die at my bench.
Yeah.
I'm convinced I'll just be on my bench and my head will just slump forward and that'll be.
With your tartan rug over you?
Yeah, I'll be sat. I'll have had my desk lowered so that I can fit my bath chair underneath it at that point. Liz will kind of push me in and say, "Would you like a cup of tea?" And that'll be it. I'll be wiped out.
We have 3 pair of glasses in front of each other.
I've tried to put an optivisor over my glasses, but they don't really.
I do that. I have my glasses, and then I have a really cheap one, and I don't know what I've done with it. It's the best one I've ever had.
Honestly, when you sort of get to that point where I'm at model shows and I'm carrying around my glasses because I don't want to get to that point where I become like Tony Greenland, where he used to have his glasses on like the threads. I think if I was to ever do that, I would just have to give up and do something else, or, you know, have laser eye surgery or something. I couldn't. Oh man, no.
Are you long or short-sighted?
My distance vision's 20/20, but my closer vision
Rubbish.
is rotten. It's absolutely rotten.
Recommend.
Really? Have you done it well?
Yeah. I had monovision, so one short, one long. And when I'm modelling, all I need is.
Oh, really?
Well, I have contacts that my left eye is a short distance and the right eye is a long, and then somehow the brain works it all out, doesn't it? It's magic.
Yeah.
62, and I'm finding the readers just, and these are +4s. So, and the varies, there's a little bit of a close-up thing on.
Oh, I see. I thought they were pence +4s.
Yes.
Oh, dear. I don't know what that bit is, but it's not strong enough. So I end up putting them on as well.
He's got those on as well.
Anyway, moving on. A lot of our benchmates struggle with finishing. You're obviously prolific with what you turn out. What's your secret for keeping momentum and avoiding the shelf of doom?
Being paid.
That works.
Yeah, if I don't finish anything, I don't get paid. I don't have a shelf of doom, and I never work on anything on more than one model at a time, is the simple answer to that. I can't focus. If I've got more than one project on the go, work on one model until it's finished and do that. So I go from A to Z with a build, and I don't touch anything else in between.
Have you finished that Panther on your desk yet? It's been on there for God knows how long.
No, and that was a model, and that's a very good example, because I built that
5 years ago.
Yes, and it's still sat there. And the thing about that Panther is that the wheels and the tracks are not glued on, and so every time I knock it, they all fall off, and then I put them back into place because I like the models to be complete on the deck. So no, it's sort of sat there, and I bought it at the.
I remember, I think I've spoke to you about that, but I can't remember what your plans were. Was you going to do it like another? Didn't you do a Dio one on a plinth in Belgium or something?
Yeah,
you're going to do something similar again.
The Hooferleys Panther before they changed the display. No, I built it because it's the cheap kit that's made by.
Hobby Boss one.
The one that's built by Ushi's Das Work, the one that's like 22 quid or something like that. And I built it, and I wanted to test the theory that you could build that kit in a couple of hours. So I bought one from, it was either Crew, or I bought it from the Mighty Bolton show. I think it might have been, the Bolton.
Good plug.
Bolton show, the greatest one-day event in the UK. Absolutely fearless show.
Oh, don't keep going on like that.
No, and I've now remembered that I haven't actually asked Mike to save me some space for the next event. So I'm hoping that he has.
Sort of.
You're a good man. So I built this kit, and I did get it built in a couple of hours. It does go together very quickly. And then I was going to paint it, and then I lost my way. And so it's sort of sat on my desk now for about 8 months and hasn't really moved. It's now become something of a feature of my desk whenever I take photographs of my desk.
More like an ornament.
Yeah, it's kind of like an ornament, yeah. And one of the things that I found over the years is that if I lose my way on a model and I don't finish it during a set amount of time and it gets put away, I'll never finish it. I may as well throw it in the bin. I'll never go back to it, because my enthusiasm is finite for a build. I start something, I finish it. If I get to a point where I've stumbled over it and I'm looking at it thinking, I don't know what to do with this, and I put it in a box and I put it in the loft, I'll never go back to it. I'll never take a half completed model out of the loft, bring it down and complete it. That's just never going to happen. So Shelf of Doom, it doesn't exist in my world, and that keeps me focused, and that means that I then complete everything the way that I should. The other thing is that I'm deadlined every month. I have to create a certain amount of material, and I have a set amount of time to build it, and it doesn't matter how complicated it is. So it could be a 72nd scale Airfix Hurricane, or it could be a 48 scale Tamiya F-35C. I still have to do each of those models within a set amount of time and create a set amount of material. So it's then up to me to work out how I allocate my time during that month to get that model from opening the box to photographed and on the editor's desk. And that keeps my focus and keeps me from being, I guess, distracted is the right word. And I can be easily distracted, often chasing a new project, thinking, oh, that's a nice picture of an F-16. I wonder if I could build one of those from a 32nd scale Hasegawa kit. That's how my mind works. I'm constantly hopping from idea to idea to idea.
Squirrel.
Yeah, it's just like a grasshopper, just bouncing around all over the place.
Okay, Martin.
I suppose the social media has changed how modelers share their work. Do you think that's been a blessing or a curse or a bit of both?
Do I think it's a blessing, a curse, or a bit of both? This is a really tough question. I like the way that social media has allowed it's social media for all of its ills. And let's stick to modeling rather than getting off and going down any other rabbit hole that we could perhaps find. Is the one thing it has done is it's democratized the hobby and allowed people who maybe would normally be too introverted to go to a club or share their work that way. It's allowed them to go online and say, here you go, this is my model, what do you think of it? And as a result of that, you see models online that are everything from absolute beginners at one end, where that's their very first model that they've ever put together, to winners at Scale Model Challenge, gold medal winners, the best of the best of the best. So you get everything in between. I think from that point of view, I like the way it's democratized the hobby. I think it's very important to be able to see all of the work, kaleidoscope, the rainbow of work, if you like. That being said, I think there can be instances where modelers will look at that kind of work, they'll see the high-end stuff and then think to themselves, I am never going to reach that. So it becomes an intellectual roadblock that they hit, rather than understanding that you have to work to get to that point. It's like, why isn't my work like that? Because it's so instant to get there. And I think that the issue of social media, Instagram Reels, for instance, where you've got an entire model being built in 4 minutes, it's fast, it's just everything gets put together, it's built in 4 minutes, removes any understanding of the time it takes to build a model, learn the skills, put them together, all of those things. And I get really frustrated when I see those, and I think to myself, come on, you're not actually showing anybody anything, really. You're not teaching anybody anything. All you're doing is you're just putting together a reel for clicks. No, and I don't believe there's a single one of us that builds a model that hasn't, at some point in the process, had a massive cock up.
Had a disaster.
Where you've become really frustrated with it and really kind of angsty about the whole thing. And you never see that online. You only see the good bits. You don't see the bad bits. And I think the bad bits are every bit as important as the good bits whenever you're talking about that. I don't know if this comes up as a question. Oh, it does. It comes up on the next question. So I'll leave it for then. But I think that's really important. But I'm as prone to this as anybody else. I like to go online and just surf through people's models and look at people's models. I'm forever looking at people's models. And I like the approach. One of the things, as I've got older, I think I've become more aware is I've started to put myself in the place of the modeler. sitting there putting their model together and trying to feel the enjoyment that they have and feel the enthusiasm that they have and how they've wanted to show that off. You go to the model, go, what do you think of this, Spencer? You like the way that this looks? It makes me quite emotional, actually. I don't know whether that's because I'm getting older and everything makes me emotional these days. I'm just like, massive crybaby over everything. I think it's sort of maybe slightly pertinent to this. I think it might be. I don't know. I can be told if when I hear this back, you've cut this piece out.
It's relevant.
But I was at Kinkit yesterday looking for some decals, actually. And Kinkit are only over the other side of Telford. And I was there, and the owner of Kinkit, which is a massive, for those people who don't know, it's a massive repository of secondhand kits. But they also do all brand new stuff as well. It's a huge place. And they'd just taken delivery of a collection of models of kit. And it was 2 Luton vans full of model kits, armour and 48 scale aircraft. And I sort of said to him, had this guy passed away? And he said, yeah, he had passed away and everything. And I said, well, we're getting to that point, aren't we, where, older modelers, they've had collections for decades and it's all coming back on stream. You're going to be very busy over the years because we're all getting a bit older. And he went, no. He said, this guy's collection, there was nothing in his collection that was older than 20 years. So he bought them in the last 20 years in the hope of building these things, as we all do. And we've all got a collection where we'll build everything, but if we sat down and plotted it out, we'd have 1,000 years of work to do. And I stood there while I was chatting to him, trying to put myself in the position of this guy who bought these kits with the eagerness of a child, looking at them going, I can't wait to get this home. Can't wait to put this together. Oh, that's going to be brilliant. And the enthusiasm of it. And that's what I've now started finding myself doing when I'm looking at people's work online. The enthusiasm of modelers who go online and go, oh, what do you think of this? This is my latest piece. I want to show this off to you. And I'm thinking, God, they must have been really enthusiastic about this. And I sort of love to try and sort of imagine people sat at their workbench, like on an evening, maybe listening to this music or got some TV on or something, and they're doing what I'm doing. They're putting this together. In the same way that when I went to the Roman baths in Bath, I was captivated by these little tiny figurines, which were a couple of inches high, that they've got in glass display cases that were 2,500 years old or whatever. And I was looking at them and thinking, that was made by a guy like me, but he was making it from different materials. I wonder what that guy was like. I wonder what his life was like. And I can't now disassociate myself from the images. And so from that point of view, I think seeing so much work, it's allowing me to maybe see the hobby in a slightly different way. But I guess the other part of that, seeing other people's work, is we are bombarded by it now. And so if you go online to not just go, oh yeah, that's okay, and not give time enough to a model. Going back to the point I made earlier on about magazines, I was able to look at those magazines for hours on end, study those pictures for hours on end. Now, if I if I look at a model and flick it up on the screen, I can't then go back to it because the algorithm will shuffle it around and it'll disappear. And I go, oh, where did that go? So unless I then put it in a folder and keep hold of it, you lose sight of where things are. That question is a lot more complicated than it appears at first bite. It's not as simple as just sitting there going, well, what do I like about it? What do I dislike about it? Because it's such a multifaceted concept, isn't it? Social media and the way things are and the way the algorithms offer you material. Martin, your stuff comes up all the time. I always see your work. I'll see it 3 or 4 times a week or whatever. It's constantly there. So I can track all of your work. But other modelers that I follow, the algorithm won't show me their work at all. And I'm like, how come I haven't seen that? Where did that go? We're in the hands of the algorithmic gods. That's the problem.
But you were saying about seeing little snippets of work on these little reels and stuff, that I think the only way really to show someone fully what to do is when people do live streams, but you just want instant gratification now. So no one's going to sit and watch 2 hours of someone painting, but that's the way to learn.
It's absolutely the way to learn as well. I guess that the issue with being given bite-sized chunks of information is so much is missed off. That will then lead to frustration. How did you get from A to B or A to Z when you've missed out the middle 10 letters or whatever. It is difficult to do that. It's just kind of frustrating that we are at that point where things aren't properly explained to you. And the only way that you can really deal with getting information is, like you say, watching a live stream. I half planned earlier on in the year to do online tutorials, so that I would, like this, a Zoom meeting where somebody would book me for an hour so that you could get information from me to do that. But time passed me by and I didn't really do it. But I do think that that's the way to do it. You and I think we'll probably meet face to face in a couple of weeks' time. You're going to FMC.
In SMC, yeah, great.
So, and when you meet face to face, it's a different kind of thing, isn't it? You can ask questions and you can bounce ideas around and do all of that kind of thing. You can't do that by watching a live reel. But again, that's where the hobby's gone. The hobby is now about those things. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I book one of those tutorials, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I should really wrap my head around doing those because I do get...
He needs it.
I keep getting asked about them. I should do them. My wife keeps asking me about them. Why aren't you doing what you planned this year?
How come you stopped doing the videos you did? You did them a few years ago, didn't you?
Time.
The little shorts time, right?
Time. And another thing as well, for all of my bluff and bluster, I had a massive crisis of confidence when it came to the videos. I found myself feeling for quite some time, actually, for a number of years, which is one of the reasons why this is the first podcast I've done in quite some time, that I didn't really feel that people wanted to hear my opinions and what I had to say in terms of video or audio discourse, So I stuck with writing and I stuck with the creation of articles, books and that, because then it was a more passive delivery of material and ideas.
Plus, it was in your comfort zone doing that.
That was very much how I felt about it. I would sit there, think, I'll do a video, and then I'd ponder it for a few hours. And before I knew it, I was like, nobody really wants to listen to any of the guff I'm going to come out with. I really just didn't want to do it. I went through a huge crisis of confidence.
Was it you that did one on glue?
Yes.
Did you do on the different, what you can and can't do with it?
The glues, I did AS12, I did bare metal finishes, I did all of those kind of things. And I was doing videos like that. They weren't actually taking that long to film, and they certainly weren't taking that long to edit because it was quite bare bones kind of editing. But it is funny when that happens to you, when you hit that wall of confidence, to a point actually where I didn't even want to go into model shops. I had a real problem with going to trade stands and model shops and all of those kind of things. It was a real breakdown from it. So I just took myself away. Model shows, didn't really get involved too much in all of that sort of stuff. I mean, I was still doing stuff with my mates. I was still going to the pub. I was still going to the football. I was still, chatting to people. I was still doing all of that kind of thing. But when it came building models,
your stuff wasn't being looked at, or
it really was a snag. So John and I did the Interesting Modelling Co., which was basically a loose little thing that we did during lockdown to hang our hats on something while we couldn't get out and do all of that kind of stuff. And then I was just like, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And I contacted them and said, I'll do this once in a blue moon, but I can't really do this anymore.
I've noticed you go on there every now and then. I tend to watch it most Sundays.
It's only now and then, just sort of, and it's not for any.
Who's the American guy on there?
Chris Buchholz. Chris Buchholz. Yeah, he's just he's a friend of theirs. So there were other people that kind of stepped in and everything, but yeah, that's the reason why I didn't do the YouTube videos. I really did get to a point where I just thought nobody wants to listen to anything I've got to say. And I haven't really got past that, to be honest, at the moment. So I don't know how I feel about doing a podcast.
They were really good. I enjoyed it.
It must be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Must be a lot of pressure. Because I look at stuff you do and I look at like Martin Covert and I think, it must be really hard if you go to a show, if you're thinking of bringing something, there's huge expectation and pressure on you.
It is.
And I could see how that would stop you doing stuff.
It's one of those things where you reach a certain level of ability for whatever that means, or fame for whatever that means, but none of which I'd buy into, but you know what I mean. And you get to a point where you're only judged by how good your next work is. If I was to build something and put it online that was just rubbish in compared to what I would normally do, people would think that I'd had some sort of breakdown. So you feel that pressure of constantly doing things. And I know Martin, I spoke to him on a podcast a long time ago about this. And I remember him talking about it and saying he felt the pressure really strongly, that he had to keep performing and had to keep creating stuff that was to the best he could create. And
that's exactly what I felt when I used to feel that if I won a comp or so I had something that had done really well, my next model had to be better. And then the next one had to be better than that. And it just burnt me out. I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep that.
I think by doing that, you reach a level of inertia that becomes impossible to deal with. That happened to me when I built the workshop diorama 10 years ago or whatever that I took to Euro Militaire. Best thing I've ever built, hands down. Most complicated diorama I've ever built. And went there, won its award. I kind of held the award and I thought, oh, well, job done. Went back home, didn't build another model for 6 months. Didn't touch one for 6 months. And the reason I didn't touch one for 6 months after that event was I kept on thinking to myself, I'm never going to be able to reach the level I reached with that diorama. And I kept on trying to find ideas that would be better than that diorama. And it was only when I finally realized I had to deconstruct my entire approach to the hobby. Instead of going to those complex levels, go to something much simpler, that I was able to get back into the hobby and get back into doing what I then needed to do. But like I say, I didn't touch anything for 6 months. I hated it. I hated the competitions. I hated myself for the way I felt. I hated that I put myself under that pressure. And I hated the way that I was dealing with other people around me. Liz, my wife, had watched me build that over the sort of 3-4 months or however long it took leading up to the Euro of that year, 2010 or whatever it was. And when I got back, she was like, happy for you. And I just was like, yeah. And I got the medal. I threw it in the drawer. I almost felt like it was the worst thing I'd ever done in the hobby. Doing that, I thought, I'm not putting myself through this again. I'm just not doing this again. This is just ridiculous.
Spencer, can I ask, were you building that diorama for yourself or for other people?
For other people to look at. That was the problem.
That's the wrong reason then, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I was building it for the eyes of the judges. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy then, doesn't it? Because you're like, what am I doing this for? Am I doing this because I want this model? Or am I doing this because, if I do these particular things and I put them in the comp, then the judges are going to go, oh, isn't he clever? And I might get the award that I wanted. I was absolutely doing it for the judges.
But you can't, it's strange that you can't apply your same thought process, like you say, if you've got an abandoned project and you've put it in a box in the loft, and I'm thinking about one that I've got and I just haven't got any love for it, but I don't really care. I just go, well, I'm not really into that at the moment. You seem to put a lot of pressure on, you did seem to put a lot of pressure on yourself to build a diorama like that for other people. Whereas if you have that attitude of, I'm building it for me and I don't really care if other people don't like it. I'm building it for my enjoyment.
It's a difficult one, isn't it, really?
It is, yeah.
Because you're always doing it to show off and to please other people.
It is hard, Mark, because when I joined my club, I went to a few meetings and we had a competition and I done one of my ammo box dioramas and I was still the new guy and I had a massive imposter syndrome and I won the competition that night. And I didn't really know what to do. I felt almost guilty that loads of other people had been going a long time. And I worried about what people might say about me. And it was horrible. But I took a step back and thought, no, I'm not. I'm going to do what I want when I want to do it. I don't really care about other people,
I mean, as the years have gone on, those issues have stopped being relevant. When I did the Legacy collection during lockdown, those were stripped back dioramas, stripped back models. None of those things there was nothing innately clever about them. I was essentially copying Francois Valentin's work. I was copying his style to create these tiny things. When I built the Century series of jets, I did the monogram kits, all of those models have got raised panel lines on, which is like, I can get drummed out of the aircraft modeling fraternity for leaving raised panel lines on ones. So I did get to a point where I wasn't really thinking about those any longer. I stopped. That Century series was built for me. I wanted all of those jets in my display case, and I'm looking at them now. They're in my display case. I wanted to build those for myself. I didn't really care about everybody else. I just thought, well, I'm just going to build these things now and torture myself for 6 months building monogram Century jets. And it was, it was exactly that, And the same with building, I wasn't building the original Tamiya Panther for the Legacy collection because I was building it for somebody else, because everybody said, why are you building this? It's a load of crap. And so I was doing that because I wanted to sort of see what I could do. And John and I would compete over those kind of things, you know. So it becomes, it's an interesting kind of thing.
Now, I must admit, going back to what you were saying, I mean, one of the things that I know I should never do, yet I do it every time, is go online and look at what other people have done. And I shouldn't do it.
That's,
it's a mistake, because sometimes I look at somebody else and I think, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and emulate that, and it doesn't turn out to be mine, then I'm trying to copy somebody else's.
A really interesting point, and something that I've tried to do a lot over the years.
Exactly.
If I'm building a particular kit, I never look at somebody else's work, because it is easy to then find yourself going down that path to try and create something.
You're swayed by it.
It's also one of the reasons why over the years I've tried to find different colour schemes, and so I can create something that's different from the kit. Whereas if you listen to musicians talking, a lot of the times they'll say when they're in the studio, they don't listen to other music because it's easy to subconsciously drag into your recording process, whether it's a hook or a drum beat or all of those kind of things. So if I'm building a particular model, I will never look at another modeler's work. That's kind of manifested itself, and it's actually, over the years, it's developed the way I approach a build, because now I'm not, and I've said this quite openly, and despite the job that I do, I'm not inspired to build models by other modelers. I'm inspired to build models by the prototype, if that makes sense. I don't go to a show and look at somebody's model and think, oh, I want to build one of those. I'll build a miniature because I've seen the prototype, and I mean the real thing, and I've seen a photograph of a Sherman during the Second World War, and I've thought I wouldn't mind trying to replicate that. So the models are no longer the inspiration. As much as I love looking at other people's models, and I love going to shows. I was at a show a couple of weeks ago, looking at people's work and thinking, oh, that does look really cool, actually. But I never instinctively think, as a result of looking at that model, I'm going to build one. I'll just see it as an artifact that I can enjoy looking at and enjoy the fact that they've put it on display. When it comes to building, I'm absolutely blank during a month that I'm building something, and I'll never look at, when I built the Magic Factory A4, I didn't look at other builds of the Magic Factory A4. I just built mine, and then when it was finished, then I would look at it and go, oh, hey, interesting approach to it. That's kind of different. So I'm very much with you on that.
And so if you had unlimited time and resources, what dream project would you tackle? Would it be a massive diorama, a specific aircraft, or maybe something completely left field?
Unlimited time and resources, I'd build a 24th scale truck towing a low loader with a tracked JCB excavator on the back. My bucket list build.
From the Scammell back to your roots.
Yeah. Maybe it goes back to that. I've always, from a little kid, I've always loved excavators. I've always loved plant machinery, diggers, excavators, all that sort of stuff. I remember seeing these, the articulated trucks with these big excavators on the trailers, all tied down, all weathered and all that kind of stuff. I would love to build something like that in 24, but it's not something I would have to spend months putting this thing together, and I don't foresee that being a possibility at some point. So as a bucket list project, that would be the thing that I would love to have a go at. I went to the point where I bought a few of the Hasegawa 35th, I think they're 35th. Yeah. They do some excavators and bits and pieces. So I bought a few of those. I have got a little excavator I'll probably build at some point. I would like to have a go at something like that. Going back to the day job and an aircraft, that kind of thing, I've got a couple of projects that I would like to do, but I'm unlikely to because I would have nowhere to put them. I'd really love to do a full-blown, absolutely full-bore build of the Revell B1 Lancer with all of the updates, everything, all the engines, the whole shooting match. 48 scale Lancer. I would love to do one of those because it's just such a fantastic looking machine. But where would I put it? We go back to the monogram builds. Monogram's B29 Super Fortress. I'd love to have a crack at that as well and have a go at the metal finish on that. But these things are so huge, I wouldn't be able to fit them in my studio, actually. I'm trying to think whether or not they'd fit on my desk. I don't think they probably would. Even if I was to build them, I don't know where I'd put them. And it would be a shame to work on something like that, you know, and not have it on display. Those are the kind of things. But I would love to build both of those. And I'm surrounded by kits of Formula One racing cars. I've got a couple of 12 scale ones that are in the studio on the shelf that I haven't got around to doing yet. I've got the Tyrrell, the P34 Tyrrell, and I've got the Renault RE20 as well. And I've got all the paints, all the bits and pieces. And I keep looking at them and thinking, I should have a crack at doing something like that. But the problem with that is that, again, that if I do something like that, it takes me away from the things that I'm paid to do. And unless I was in a position where I could say to the boys, look, you know, Marcus in particular, if I build this for you, you know, do you want to take it for the magazine? Then I would have some justification for putting it together. But I would like to have a crack at that because they are a challenge. Cars are a challenge. Getting those finishes right are a challenge. They're unlike anything else, really. So yeah, those are the kind of bucket list projects.
Absolutely, digging, wall doing that. I think it's the weathering that keeps the creative. The want to do something with weathering that keeps you creative, and obviously doing an X. Yeah, you could just go.
It would be, or you could go crazy with that.
Spencer, many builders say they're scared of weathering because they don't want to ruin a model. What's your advice for building confidence in that area?
Having a go at it and starting off simply and learning the basics is a fundamental building block of everything. We mentioned him earlier, don't go on to Night Shift and look at Martin Kovac's work and think, I'm just going to emulate that because Martin is borderline genius at what he does. And he's been doing it for a very long time and he practices a lot. He's working, 8-9 hours a day on these things. He's doing all that. Start off with something that's simple. Take your vehicle and then learn how to do the building blocks of the weathering process, whether it's simple washes, simple dust layers, a little bit of chipping here and there, and understand that you need to learn to walk before you can run and not create a masterpiece from the start. As model makers, you sometimes have people saying, yeah, it's easy for you. You can do this. You can do that.
Well, there was a time.
Yeah, there was a time when I built a Scammell tank transporter and glued more of the parts to my fingers than I did to each other. I didn't start off being able to build all of these things the way that I do now. It's because I've practiced a lot and I've worked and I've obsessed about it and I've kept going and I've tried to incorporate new little techniques into everything. And every day I learn something new. I'll do something and I go, oh, that worked really well. Why didn't I try that?
I don't know about you, but do you say that you've developed an eye for looking at things in the real world, like an excavator? Yeah. We see this stuff every day, but when you actually look at it from a scale modelling point of view, there's a route I take to work at the moment, and I go past a farm, and there's the best rusty corrugated roof on a ruined farm building I've never seen. And from a distance, I think, that is a 1/35th diorama sitting right there. You cannot get better inspiration
real thing
or reference than that sitting there.
Absolutely. You do get an eye for these things. I can now look at something. I revealed a few months back, I did a model of Kingston House. I posted photographs of this on my thing, a Georgian building. I built it as a wedding present that I'd been commissioned to build. I was shown the photographs. I was slightly drunk at the time as well when I was shown the pictures at Christmas. We were at my brother and sister-in-law's and their friends wanted to commission me to do this model. And they got some photographs on the phone. And I admit to having had several beers at this point. So I was feeling fairly loose in my ability to say yes to pretty much anything. Showed me the phone and they said, would you be able to build this? You built the pubs. Would you be able to build it? Yeah, of course I can. Not really looking at it properly and not really understanding that there was a whole bunch of really technical stuff in there that would come back to haunt me later on. But I do have a sense now that I look at something and I can I can very quickly translate what I can see in reality into miniature, and I can understand the process that's going to take me from that point to the model. But that's experience. A drummer will listen to a drum part and he'll be able to instinctively translate that music and put that part in. I can do that with modeling. And I think that modelers who are beginning, I would suggest they do. Look at the real thing. Look at how dust lays on something. Look at how dust settles on a wheel. Look at how, just take a tyre, for instance, a wheel and the surrounding tyre. How does the tread work? How do you get that sort of dark, scuffed tread? How does the dust settle against the sidewall? Are the chips on the wheels? And then from that little piece, how do you translate what you can see on that little piece, and how would you paint that little piece, and how then could you paint the rest of the model using those simple techniques? If you've got 3 or 4 techniques that you can use, then you can create a more interesting finish once you've got a base coat. But don't then think to yourself, oh, well, I'm going to build a model and I'm going to put a green base coat on, and then I'm going to marble it so that it's got a load of fading on it, and then I'm going to put highlights on, and then I'm going to modulate the whole thing, and then I'm going to do all of that, and then I'm going to start putting paint chips on it and weather it and put all dust layers on. No, build the model, paint it in like a base layer of color, one single layer of color, and then maybe think to yourself, oh, maybe I'll just put some dust on that. And if you put some dust on that and you put some paint chips on and some markings, that might be enough for that model. That might be enough to learn from before you move on to the next thing. What could I do on the next thing? Well, I'll put dust on this one. Could I add some dark washes around the detail to make those stand out on the next one? And then muscle memory will start to kick in. You're learning one step after another. And before you know it, you've gone from 3 or 4 little steps to 10 steps or 15 steps or whatever. And those 15 steps might serve you well enough to get all of the results that you need for everything that you build. And you might be happy then to be able to think to yourself, well, every model I build, I'm going to get a nice result because I've got those stepping stones in place on the way there. And I really think that that's the advice that I get, because it's going back to the point I made 3 minutes ago. It's about learning to walk before you can run, not looking at the greatest thing in front of you and thinking, God, I really want to do that, and then getting disillusioned because you can't, because you haven't got those steps in. Drummers have to learn rudiments. You learn all the rudiments and everything before you then can go on stage. Liz will tell you that when she's learning piano or whatever, you've got to learn the scales. You do all of those kind of things. You can't play piano until you've got those building blocks in place. Model making is no different from that. You need the building blocks in place before you can then move on to the more complicated areas. And once you do that, your confidence builds with each different model that you make. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Let's say you go out and you spend £10 a plastic kit, you buy a Tamiya Panzer II for $8.99 or something like that. You've bought the model, you've sat there and built it and put it together, and you've spent 3 or 4 hours putting it together on your kitchen table, and then you paint it, you make a mess of it, and it goes in the bin. Well, that model doesn't owe you anything because you've had 3 or 4 hours of pleasure out of that. What other hobby can you do? Go to watch football is 40, 50 quid to go and watch a game for 90 minutes or whatever. You build your model, you've had the enjoyment. The model doesn't owe you anything. And if you make a mistake, so what? You've made a mistake, your model's moved on. Move on to something else. Learn from those experiences. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because the only way that you're ever going to learn anything is by cocking up something on a fairly regular basis. And my career is littered with
your bin
and my bin. It's some of the most monumental cock-ups you will ever imagine. I could write an entire book on just my cock-ups. So, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Learn, just use those mistakes as experience. We all need that. Yeah. So that would be my advice for what it's worth.
Good advice, without question.
You've worked with some of the biggest names in the hobby. Are there 1 or 2 collaborations that stand out as especially memorable?
Collaborations in the hobby. I suppose I've not worked on individual projects with model makers, because I'm quite funny about stuff like that. I like my work to be my work. I've been fortunate that I've been able to get to know a lot of fabulous modelers and pick their brains over the years. I suppose the most important single model maker would be Francois Verlinden. I'm fortunate that over the years I became friends with him and worked alongside him during my days at Military in Scale, and was able to spend time, sit next to, this was we talk about learning and experience. Sitting next to somebody like that and watching them paint, even if it's only for a few days, you learn so much from seeing how the hands work, how they approach things, their mentality, all of those kind of things. So being able to do that has been lovely. I'm currently working on projects at the moment, which I'll reveal in a few weeks' time. And I've been working on this thing since April, actually. And I'm working on it with Craig Sargent in New Zealand. Craig is a very talented guy, and he's got kind of encyclopedic knowledge of particular subjects. And so guys like that, guys like Jonathan, Mark or Drew, all of the skill sets that allow you to further your knowledge. One of the things that's always driven me is my desire to learn as much as I can about the history of the hobby rather than the future of it. So I'm forever reading older books, picking up information, learning about older kits, doing all of those kind of things. So my knowledge of older nonsense that I built when I was 15 or whatever has become kind of important to me. But more recently, I've been able to get to know lots of fantastic model makers and be able to pick their brains. Guys like Moran van Gils in Belgium. Moran is arguably the best model maker on the planet at the moment, I would think. He's certainly up there. I mean, I don't know if anybody has ever seen this guy's work. It's incredible. The one thing he's doing, I think it's a 200th scale HMS Victory diorama he's doing at the moment. I think it's HMS Victory. It's pretty much scratch built, and he's got all these figures on it, and it's just mind blowing. He's been working on it since well before COVID. You know, I remember sitting down with him and I was talking about a diorama that I'd built. You may remember this. It goes back a long time, but I did a diorama with a little mini digger, and it was tiny. It was about 3 inches square, and it got this little mini digger. In the hole was the turret of a little French tank that had been uncovered. I'd finished this model, and I sat down, and Moran was looking at it, and I sat down with him. And he by trade, he's an archaeologist. And this was an archaeological dig. That was my idea behind it. And he went, no, that's not the way they would do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. And all of that kind of stuff. And I was able to sort of, not only was I picking the brains of one of the greatest model makers on the planet, he was also using his technical expertise to point me in the right direction. And then I went away for a week and brought it to Euro Militaire, showed it to us. So what do you think? And he went, now it's right. And I was just like, oh, that's brilliant. You know, you're able to kind of do that. And it's the same with a lot of the guys on the continent. You know, you're chatting away to these people. And I think that's important. You get to talk to a lot of the armour modelers, like Christoph Pullins, David Parker. You know, you just pull names out of the hat, can't you? All of these kind of people. And it's just great to be able to get their opinion on things that maybe you'll use, maybe you won't. Because we all approach our hobby in a different way. We all approach our builds in a different way. That's one of the great things. And I think that's particularly important, actually. Again, going off at a slight tangent, that we all develop our own style and approach. I think, although I've spent a year aping Francois Verlinden's models for the Legacy collection, I don't want to build all of my models and all of my dioramas like Francois does. That's not what it was all about. It was about
like his,
being able to do a collection that tapped into that, but it didn't modify my approach. I still want my models to look like they're built by me. I don't want my models to look like they're built by someone else. And in fact, over the years, I've said to people that one of the things I would really hate, and it's not for any egotistical reason or anything like that, is for somebody to say, oh, that looks like such and such's work. I think I'd be mortified if somebody did that, because I always want my work to look like my work. You want your work to look like yours. Dan, you want yours to look. We all want our work to look, because it's an artistic pursuit. We're not trying to ape other people around us. We may use their information, and we draw in ideas from those kind of people, which I guess goes back to the question we were talking about earlier about learning techniques and learning ideas. Learning from the best is fine. Just don't try and be them. Still
lose your creativity.
Be who you are and put your stamp on your work. And if you want to create something that's, I don't know, you build a piece of armor and you want to build and paint a Second World War Sherman tank in a diorama and make it look like the heavy metal box art from Games Workshop figures, and you want to have everything highlighted and edged and all of that, and you want that sort of extreme accentuation on your model, build it like that. That's your work. That's the way you should approach it. And if that's the way you want to do that,
It makes you
That's
happy.
fine.
Yeah.
Don't feel that you need to be aping other people's work. My aircraft look like they're made by me, I think, now. I put them on display and people go, oh, yeah, they can probably sort of see it's my style. We all have a style, and I think that's kind of important.
So that leads me on to another question then. Where do you get your inspiration from? I mean, is it just ideas that you have, or do you see a vehicle or an aircraft that you feel passionate about, that you want to do something with? Or is it a mix?
I've certainly over the last few years started to narrow my field of vision down when it comes to choice of subjects, especially with aircraft. My passion is aircraft from 75 to 85, that sort of 10-year block there. I'm 58 in a couple of months' time, so I'm from that period, really. And I like the idea. I'm essentially now building the aircraft that I became passionate about when I first became interested in them as a kid. You know, when you're seeing Buccaneers in wraparound camouflage, or you're seeing Harriers, we talked about those kind of things. But I recently bought a couple of books, one of which was on the twin bases of RAF Bentwaters and Woodbridge that were home to the A-10 squadrons, and they were home to F-16 aggressors, Phantoms, that kind of thing. But the book is filled full of photographs of the aircraft that were in the original colour schemes. So the lizard schemes that the A-10s carried, the Phantoms are in, you know, 2 greens and brown, those kind of schemes. I can admire a Block 60 F-16. It's never going to be as interesting to me as an F-16A, because I like the originals when they came out. I don't like them where they've got everything scabbed all over them. If I build an Abrams, an M1 Abrams is going to be way more interesting to me than an M1 Tusk with all of the armour scabbed over it. I'm interested in the things when they first came out. So that book in particular, I've stared at quite a bit. I've sort of flicked through and I think, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. So with Great Wall Hobby about to release an A10A in 48, they had a C in the pipe, but they've done an A.
It's out. Got it.
Oh, is it? That's probably something I'm going to want to try and pick up. I would look at the book and go, yeah, I want to do one of those. I'd do an A10 because that's where it came from. The inspiration is always from the real thing. It doesn't come from models of those subjects. So I'll look through, you know, various books on Second World War. I'll look at the photographs. One of the things I'm slightly obsessed by recently is the then and now pictures that you get on various Facebook pages where they hold the photograph up to the location. And I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. That's kind of interesting. So I'm looking at those photographs and gaining inspiration from that. So my field of view has kind of narrowed. And also I've become sort of semi-aware that I'm getting older and there's a finite amount of time to do the projects that I want to do. So all of those ones that I've put to one side that I haven't done yet, a C-130 Hercules, a P-3 Orion, a B-58 Hustler, those kind of things, an M1 Abrams, a Bradley, all of those subjects that I've wanted to do that I've not done yet. So I'm very much in that point in my life where I want to cover those things. But like I mentioned earlier on, I am a bit like a grasshopper. So I'll decide on something and I'll go, oh yeah, I quite fancy doing that next. And then I'll go, ooh, that's a nice photograph.
Is the choice made for you now and again, Specs?
Yeah.
You know, like if a magazine says, here, can you do that?
So Marcus will contact me, especially if a new Tamiya kit's coming out. Marcus will get in touch with me and he'll say, oh, F-35C's coming in. Can you do this for me? And I'll go, yeah, that's fine. Send it over. So the F-35C will come through to me. Then he'll phone me up and say, just had the M36 Jackson. Can you build the M36 Jackson? Brett is a different animal, really, because he allows me flexibility to make choices. So I choose those. But often those choices tend to be guided by what's been released. So, for instance, the 32nd scale Meteor F8 has just arrived from Revell. So that will be something that'll be built because it's brand new. He wants that doing. Or we've got a Lysander to do or something else. So Brett will have new subjects that he deals with. And so you're sort of semi determined by what comes out. Marcus is very much more, I need this doing, can you do this? So I don't get any choice. And then what I do is that once he's made the decision for me and once he's said, yes, this is what I need, I then go to references and do the research. So before the kit arrives, I've already got the research in place. I've already got the images that I need in place. So I'm not then second guessing myself. And I've already made the decision about how the model's going to be approached. Whenever I build a model, especially aircraft, armor tend to be slightly different, but with aircraft, once I've made the decision what aircraft I'm going to model, I've already made the decision on the color scheme, and I've already made the decision on the details I'm going to add, and I've already made the decision on the loadout. All three of those things are already determined before I start the model. I never sit there and think, right, I'm going to build this F-14 in Tomcat as markings, and then think to myself halfway through, actually, I quite fancy doing a swordsman's aircraft. It never happens. I always make the decision earlier on, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. Because if I don't do that, then I'll find myself second guessing paints, accessories, decals, all of those kind of things halfway through a project, and I don't really have the time to do that.
Do you know, on your blurb, do you actually write down what paints you used during the build? Because that's one thing that really annoys me when I look at somebody else's build, and I think, oh, what colours is he used for that? And it's not there. You know, he might say he's just used Gunsanyo, but you're not or mention what it is.
No, I'll always try as much as I can, unless it's obvious. You painted a cockpit and you can see that I've painted it in.
Yeah, if it's Spitfire, it's
grey, black, greys, you know, that kind of thing. But if I'm creating an article, I will say which paints I've used, or I'll photograph it with the paint so that you can kind of see what it is. I agree, it can be a little bit frustrating when you read an article and you look at it and go, yeah, what colour did they use again? Where did they get that paint from?
Aircraft blue.
Yeah, aircraft blue.
Like the one that was under the Hurricanes early war. Sky. Can't find it. I don't know what I'm going to use.
I had that with
sky blue. Yeah, the sky blue. Nobody actually does a sky blue.
No, I had that with the that Mark 8 Spitfire I built last year, the 24 scale one. Whatever the colour was on that, there was PRU blue, and I was like, where do I get this flaming colour from? And so I try and, as much as possible, I try and sort of keep notes of all of those kind of things. But most of it is kind of upstairs in my head. I don't actually write notes. I'm able to remember what I do. But once I've completed a model, I completely forget about it. And once somebody will say to me, what they used to say to me when they saw me in shows about military scale, what's in the last issue? And I'd go, I've got no idea. I've completely forgotten. I can tell you what's in the new one. I can tell you what's in the one I'm working on now. But I would completely forget about it. And to the point where I was building a P-38 Lightning. Remember when the Tamir one came out, the first one came out? And I was building that, and I noted online, and I said, this is the first time I've ever built a Lightning. I really like the Lightning, it's great, and it's the first time I've ever built it. And then somebody sent me a screen grab of an article I'd written for Military Scale where I'd built a P-38 Lightning for the magazine. I'd completely forgotten about it. And I was just like, where did that all come from then? And I still don't remember building this flaming thing.
And what do you do with them?
A lot of the new stuff is on display in my workroom and sort of in the library bit here. But the majority of stuff that I build just goes in boxes, goes up in the loft. I've got an entire collection of built-up models. I think to myself, I should just get rid of these things. But I do find it very difficult to get rid of. I'm very kind of territorial about the models. Yeah, a lot of them are on display. You'll see some of my work. I'm taking some work to SMC, so you'll be able to see 3 or 4 things that I'm taking there.
The SMC.
But I like to keep everything in this bit of the house, that there isn't anything over there in the body of the house. And that way I have a break. The break line is the door that comes into this bit, so that everything, this is work. This is the work part of the house. And the rest of it is my home. We don't really have anything in there other than PlayStations and TV and
the essential stuff. Drum kit, have you stopped playing it?
No, it's not set up. It's not actually set up at the moment because of work done, but it'll be set up at some point. I'll get back to playing. So, yeah.
Okay, so loaded question for you. 132nd Meteor, what do you think?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's outstanding. Is the simple answer to that. It's absolutely outstanding. It's like Revell kits that you've sort of seen recently. It's a real step up from what they've produced up till now. I mean, they went through quite the F-18 Super Hornet that they built, which was just an absolute pig, you know, things like there's been issues with kits and some of them haven't been that great. And this thing is like on another level. It's beautiful. The surface detail on it is absolutely out of this world. It's as good as I've seen anywhere, really. It's one of those kits that did a very cursory preview of this thing, posted it on my blog, and I said that this was my kit of the year, and I have no reason to change that opinion. Unless something spectacular comes out in the next, how many months we got? 3 months left of this year, 3 months. Unless something spectacular hits the market in the next 3 months, this thing's best kit that I've seen released. I haven't actually. I've only got the plastic parts at the moment. Luke, who's been project managing this thing, assures me that the decals, some photo etch and the instructions will be here this week, so I'll have a complete package. I like the idea of doing an FR9. I like the nose on the FR9. I think that's rather nice. But I did jokingly say to John Mock when we were talking about it that I did a 48 scale Airfix one that was in high-speed silver and day glow. And I thought that would look kind of corking in 32nd scale. Although the day glow did give me kittens painting it onto the 48 scale one. I really don't know. There's some interesting schemes here. I think is there a Belgian one in that? I can't remember.
Yes, there's a Belgian target tug.
Yeah, Belgian. I might not do an REF one actually, which is quite unusual for me. Although I did say that if I was to ever build a 24 scale Airfix Mark 9 Spitfire, I would do the French one because I quite like the idea of doing something different. So I think that's a likely option to do something rather than doing I've already built an REF F8, so may well do that. But when this kit comes out, I think people are going to be really bowled over by it because it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. The quality of the moulding is fantastic. The surface detail is brilliant. The interior is really nice. You get 2 Derwent engines in it. It's absolutely beautiful. Yes, it's definitely the best aircraft kit I've seen this year, without doubt.
Well, I have seen the decals that are for the kit.
Okay.
Yes, I've been working on that project with Luke for some time. Yeah. But if you've built the Airfix Meteor, you'll have built this aircraft because both aircraft were scanned from the original WH364, which is down at the Gloucester.
One thing I did notice about when I was looking at it was that it looks very familiar. The way that Revell have approached their kit and the way that Airfix approached their kit, detail on it, that there is a familiarity there. So I am really interested. The other thing about the Meteor kit is that it's surprisingly big as well. People make the assumption that these post-war jets were little machines, but it's a big old boat. Yeah, it is. It's going to be an interesting thing, but I've got projects this month to finish off. And then I've got the Marauder to do for Brett. The ICM kit will be my next build after that. So I'm not going to get to the Meteor until after the National.
When's it going to be out for sale? End of November.
National Champion? Yeah, I heard it was, around. So I won't touch mine until after Scale Model World.
No.
And I'll buy you one.
Well, the first iteration of the box is only 3,000 being produced worldwide, and it's going to have the Duke Hawkins Meteor book in it. Photo etch, canopy masks, basically everything you need.
I like the option of the FR9 though. I think it just adds a bit of punch to it. It's got an aggressive air about it, that blunt nose with the camera port. So I do like the look of that. So I think that's my likely port of call with that kit. I don't really know just yet. But like I say, I won't start one until... It's one of the curses is I have these kits in the studio and I tend not to look at them unless I have to. So I've been known before now to be sent a kit and it being still in its cardboard box 3 weeks later unopened, because until I get to a point where I can focus on it, I tend to sort of leave it be, really, shiny new things and all of that.
Okay, Spencer. Well, finally, what's next? Any big productions or projects or must-build kits on the horizon you'd like to tease for our listeners?
I've got a brand new build that I will reveal in the next couple of weeks, which I've kept completely under wraps. I haven't shown, there's a couple of people who are helping me with this, which has been an absolute labour of love. So that will be revealed in a few weeks' time. I'm not going to say too much more about that. The first time anyone sees it will be at Scale Model Challenge. So that's brand new. Cool. I haven't wanted anybody to kind of see that until it's finished. Then I've got the Marauder, which is going to be done which I'm looking forward to, which is going to go on display at Scale Model World. So you'll be able to see that. So that'll be brand new for Scale Model World again. And then the Meteor, which I'm planning to do. And then after that, a few projects that I'd like to complete, which I think will probably come up and run into the new year. One is a fully detailed F-15 Strike Eagle, which I've got all the bits and pieces for. So that's something, including an amazing set of ejector seats from the Minicraft collection, which are amazing, absolutely unbelievable. So that's going to be done. And also a Buccaneer. I'm going to finally get around to doing a Buccaneer. You mentioned earlier on about
A trumpeter
say
one.
that again.
A trumpeter
Oh
one.
God, no. The trumpeters they really should.
That'll be
At
interesting.
the risk of being excommunicated, they should avoid British subjects, really, shouldn't they? So yeah, and again, you mentioned earlier on about the Meteor kit having a Duke Hawkins book in. I bought Duke Hawkins books for both the Buccaneer and for the Strike Eagle, and they are absolutely unbelievable reference books. For anybody that wants to build an aircraft kit in detail, they're just sensational. The one on the Strike Eagle is amazing. So I can see me getting a couple more of those at some point. And then I'll try and mention the Mighty Bolton show, which comes up at the end of January, February time, isn't it? End of January.
25th of January.
25th. Oh God, is it 20? So I'll try and get something new done for then as well. As far as books are concerned, not sure about those at the moment. I've just finished the Jag book, which is out there and people have seen. Yes, thank you for that.
Highly recommended.
Very much appreciated. Yeah, very different project for me because it was done very much as a warts and all diary of the project, where I really didn't pull any punches about the issues that I had during the project, not with the kit, because the kit is superb and it goes together brilliantly, but my approach to it, and it was one of those, if you'd been sat on my shoulder, you probably would have understood what it meant, because we talked earlier on about sort of learning and things not running right on rails. That book covers all of the cock-ups that I made, all of the issues. It discusses those in detail, and I felt that it was really important to outline the positives and the negatives through a project and give people an idea that not everything kind of runs on rails. But yeah, I've got a couple of ideas for books maybe next year. Meteor, unfortunately, that's going to be for Brett, so I possibly could do another one on the Buccaneer. I've sort of semi-thought about, and also possibly one on teen series jets, 14, 15, 16 and 18, not 17, production ones, just the 4. So that's a possibility. But we're running up to Christmas, aren't we? And once all challenges are out of the way, and then lights switch on in town and it's Christmas. And there's no point planning anything until the new year after that. So there will be loads of good stuff, hopefully. And hopefully people will still enjoy seeing the stuff that I've come up with. It's always a nerve-wracking thing when you do something new, because you do want people to like what you do, enjoy it. And sometimes you kind of hit it out of the park, and other times it just drops at your feet and you're just like, oh, I really wish I hadn't bothered with that. I should have done something else. We'll see. So that's kind of it, really. And who knows, I may get around to doing that digger.
Without question, it's going to happen.
Get on that JCB, mate. You get it done. Yeah, get one of those diggers and get something like that done. But no, in terms of aircraft, I think those are likely to be similar choices. And inevitably, I am going to go back to doing some monogram kits at some point. And I really, really want to do the B-17 and the B-24 Liberator. I haven't done any for a while. I used to do science fiction. I've done some bits and pieces, and I bought some of their kits. The NAK stuff's really nice, actually, if you ever get a chance to do that.
I've never heard of it. I don't know it.
They're kind of robots that...
Maschinenkrieger.
Maschinenkrieger, yeah, really nice. If you've never seen one of their kits as well, they are really fun to put together. They're really nice to put together.
A bit like Bandai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to that. But they were originally made out of, they were done by a guy, I think you pronounce it Cow or Co, Yokohama.
Oh, Yokohama.
And he built them out. The original robots were made out of, the little Ku-use helicopter? And he made the body.
Hughes 500?
Yeah, the Hughes 500. He made the body out of that. Yeah, really clever stuff. But yeah, you can buy all these kits now. They're really good, yeah. So are you suggesting that I'm just like a jack of all trades?
I've never come across anything that I've seen your cars, I've seen your bikes, and obviously everything military you've done, but not a little bit out there.
Not a lot. I have occasionally dabbled in it. It's one of those sort of dabbly things. Your thing? No, not really. Although I would like to. Yeah, I've always thought scratch building a spaceship would be really cool. You know, with all the greeblies all over it and all of that sort of stuff. And it's not like I'm short of kits to rob. You know, to be able to do those kind of things. Who knows? Maybe one day.
You'll have to listen to the next episode because our guest is Matt Irvin.
Oh, brilliant.
Ex-BBC special effects designer of the Liberator from Blake 7 and K9 from Doctor Who.
Yeah, brilliant.
So tell us how he actually came up with different kit bashing, etc., for sci-fi. So, yes. Anyway, Spencer, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Your builds, your books, and your articles have inspired more modelers than you could probably ever imagine, ourselves included. Thank you for taking your time to share your stories and your perspective on the hobby with us today. Before we let you go and escape back to the real world, where can our benchmates follow your online journal and online presence?
Well, you can follow me on Facebook, on the Kitbox page on Facebook, I think, or Spencer Pollard's Models, I think. I have my own blog. I do a daily diary on there, which is thekitbox.org. And I post something every day. Not everything's particularly grandiose. Sometimes it's just, mentioning that, like today, I'll probably mention that I've just done a podcast recording. I discuss things that interest me, but I do that every day. And my wife challenged me at the start of the year to do an entire year, 365 days of updates on that. And the other day I was so tired, I forgot about it. I missed one. So I'm presuming I'm going to have to push it beyond the start again. We were traveling and I completely forgot. I woke up next morning, I was like, oh no. But yeah, thekitbox.org, or for my Facebook page, I tend to be on there most of the time. With this model that I'm working on at the moment being so under wraps, I haven't done any particular updates on there, but at some point, once this thing's done, I will get back, I promise, putting actual things on there and doing all of that. That's where you can find me if you want. And any details of any books or other nonsense that I might be involved in tends to get put onto that page, so you can follow me on there.
Well, Spencer, please don't be a stranger. You're welcome back anytime. It's been an absolute, genuine pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anytime, my friend.
See you again soon.
Cheers, Spence.
Cheers, Spencer.
See you, Spencer. Bye-bye.
Think you've heard it all? Think again. Follow Beyond the Box Art on the socials for updates that breaks the boundaries, bends rules, and redefines the ordinary.
Right, guys, that's another episode of Beyond the Box Art, glued, sanded, and polished to a high gloss. Big thanks to our benchmates worldwide, and you lot for keeping this hobby alive and slightly unhinged. Don't forget you can support the show through Patreon, where every penny helps cover our running costs, and any surplus goes straight to Models for Heroes. Share us, review us, and tell your mates at the club. Until next time, keep your sprues tidy, your decal straight, and your excuses for new kits even straighter. Catch you in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.